Will McCauley with cEntellect. I'm here with our founder, Mike Reed. This week I want to discuss our proprietary research and analysis piece on the economics of a battery energy storage system, both standalone and how it relates to a general power system, including renewables and natural gas generation. So, Mike, obviously batteries have been a very popular topic in the news media. They would lead you to believe maybe that batteries are the solution for everything and that we should never build any kind of fossil fuel, whether it's natural gas, coal, or nuclear plants for that matter, in the United States, because these technologies have come so far from their inception. I've got a list of some projects that have either been built or are being built, and then also some PPAs and some awards that have happened in the market recently. Yep. So just kind of want to run through those with you and then hear your opinion on those. So the biggest one to date that everyone knows about is Tesla in South Australia. So they put in a 100 megawatt battery system in 100 days, which is A, very fast, and B, very large for what is existing today. So far it's been working out well and they've been able to alleviate the blackouts, but we don't know anything about the cost really associated with that system. The second one is they installed a 20 megawatt system in California to backstop the Aliso Canyon leak over there. And then the third one, it was just announced in the past couple of weeks for PG&E, and this is actually Tesla's building a large system, but also Viscera Energy. I think the total amount here is about 550 megawatts between 4 different construction companies, and they're looking to replace 3 aging natural gas plants in California, believing that these batteries should be able to operate at a more efficient level than anything, either new build gas or existing gas. The other one that was announced very recently was Viscera Energy in West Texas is building a 10 megawatt battery coupled with a solar system that they have there. So talk about that one. That's really on the sort of builder developer side. And then on the PPA or the RFP side, everyone has heard about the Xcel Energy Rfp from earlier this year, where they were getting bids of around $36 a megawatt for solar plus storage. And the storage component represented only about a $7 per megawatt hour premium over the standalone solar system. Similarly, they got bids for wind of around $21, again, wind plus storage, with about a 3% premium associated with the storage system. People, when they saw those, thought that's incredible. Technology's come so far. And then the one last year was Arizona, the Tucson area, had a bid of, or a PPA, signed for about $45 a megawatt hour. Again, solar plus storage. So you look at these numbers and you've got to believe that this technology should be able to outcompete anything that exists today. So why don't you walk us through sort of the true economics and what things really look like from your perspective?
Yeah, Will hit me with a lot in a short order of time, but everything he discussed really fell into 3 categories. The first is if you're desperate. Australia was desperate. Battery energy storage is the fastest built technology out there. It can be built in less than a year. Australia was suffering blackouts and needed something fast. So that was the category of being distressed. The second category is a regulated rate base. Battery energy storage is ideal for a regulated rate base, and we're going to expand on that in a minute. So that's the second category. The third category of projects is we see battery energy storage coupled to renewables bid into auctions, winning auctions, but I'm going to suggest those projects are out of the money and will not get built. So 3 categories. Projects out of the money will not get built. The second category is in a regulated rate base, and the first category is distress. And let's expand on all 3 of those as we talk about battery energy storage. Battery energy is probably the hottest topic today in the energy media and has been. It's a utopian concept if we can bundle renewables with batteries and make for firm power. And it's been a utopian concept for the past decades. We've made tremendous progress. Battery energy storage, or BESS, I'm going to call it BESS going forward here. BESS Capex is down 6x over the last 10 years. That's wonderful. The question is, how far does it have to continue to fall to be at parity with our existing generation technology? That's a much different question. There are two ways to balance a renewable energy grid system. The first way is through what we're currently doing, which is automatic generation control, AGC, coupled with spinning reserves from natural gas peakers. Going forward in this discussion, we'll just call that AGC. In an AGC system, when the wind stops blowing and the sun stops shining, what happens is you then put on an automatic electrical load on the spinning reserve of a natural gas peaker. It slows, it gets out of frequency, they inject more natural gas, it brings it up quickly as a power generator instantaneously. The inverse is true. When it stops, or it starts blowing and it starts sun shining, and then it backs down to just a spinning reserve. So we currently are doing exactly what a BES system can do, but we're doing it with a spinning reserve. So BES isn't bringing anything new to the marketplace. What we're going to do in the balance of this is compare those two systems. The current BES market is ideal in Will's Category 2 for regulated rate-based technology. And there's 4 reasons why that is. The first is that it's really expensive. And the objective is to get expensive assets into a regulated rate base. You win as the asset owner. The second reason is it's quick. You can put it in a year or less. The third reason is there's a long litany of value chain components. I'd argue there's maybe 11, if not more, value chain components. The problem with the economic justification of these value chain components is double counting. I've seen many of these double counted, exaggerating the value proposition of BES over the alternative. And the fourth and final reason, maybe the biggest of all, in that comparative economics of a BES system are not well understood. In fact, I would argue they're actually opaque. If you look at one of the 11 value propositions for BES, it's energy arbitrage. But energy arbitrage, the spread between off-peak and on-peak, is only averaging about $12 a megawatt hour. That falls far short of being able to justify a BES system. A BES system can be subsidized through the federal tax credit, which is being phased out as we speak, but it can only be exercised if it's bundled with a renewable generation asset such as a wind plant or a solar plant. The problem is when you link or dedicate one battery to one generation source, it's local optimization. And that's not how this works. The ideal economics are global optimization, where you bundle many renewable sources potentially with many batteries, and you get global optimization. So this bundling process of only one-on-one actually negates the value proposition of a federal subsidy. What I want to do going forward is not really focus on the value proposition, because I think that's really, really muddled and double counted. I just want to focus on the comparative cost of an AGC system, which is what we're currently doing, compared to a battery energy storage system if it's bundled with an AGC system. If you think about BES, you can think about it contextually from 3 perspectives. The first is it's a storage device. That's kind of hard to think about. The second makes it a little bit easier. It's a power generator which recycles virgin power. And the third way to think about it, it's a power generator who is buying electricity as fuel. So instead of a gas generator buying gas, it's buying electricity as a fuel. So 3 contextual ways to think about it. The second contextual way, as recycling virgin power, we end up with kind of a simple formula. It is the cost of virgin power plus the cost of BES has to be less than the cost of virgin power for the economics to work. Well, you look at that, and by default, that can never be a true statement. Let me take it one step further. Even if the fuel source was free, BES would still be considerably more expensive than virgin electricity. Again, even if electricity was free. Let's transition into the third contextual thing, is thinking about it as a fuel source. I've run all of my economics you're going to see going forward as if the BES system was buying off-peak power at $23 per megawatt hour. Now, a battery is only about 86% as efficient. So what I mean by that is if I put 100 megawatts into the battery, I only get out 86 megawatts. And so that $23 per megawatt hour I put in is equivalent to $27. I've got to adjust the $23 to $27 on heat losses through the battery process. And when we get done, we end up with an interesting value chain stack that you can see on this chart. And what you find is that battery energy storage, again at a $23 power purchase cost, is $232 LCOE, or levelized cost of electricity. It is 2.6 times more expensive than a natural gas peaker operating at only 33% capacity factor. And you can see the value chain here. Wind is the cheapest at $44. then solar at $70, and then a natural gas peaker at 50% capacity factor comes in at 71. The 71 jumps to 91 as that natural gas peaker runs fewer hours. Why? Because for each megawatt hour it requires a greater return on capital, return of capital, and less megawatts to spread the fixed O&M. And then the LCOE jumps up to BES at $232. There are two things that are killing battery energy storage economics. One is obvious, which is the Capex. The second is less obvious. It's only operating at 16% capacity factor. It's only generating on average 4 hours a day. And when you run the 4 hours a day and adjust for 96% availability, it's 16% capacity factor. Those two combined really soar the LCOE of battery energy storage. Now that's the negative. What I want to do here is shift and focus on the positive of battery energy storage, and let's see how far the positive aspects take us. In the table on the left, what does battery energy storage really do that a current AGC system cannot? I would tell you it does three things. The first, I think you can increase your wind generation market penetration from 33% to 45%. Just wind standalone in any given market. That's a bump of 12%. That's a great thing because wind is so cheap. The second thing it can do, I think it can lift solar market penetration from 17% to 22% for a bump of 5%. That's another good thing because solar is cheap. The third thing it does is it lowers natural gas peaker from 50% capacity factor to 33. That's actually a bad thing because that natural gas peaker at 33% is about $20 per megawatt hour more expensive than at 50%. So we're going to compare those two systems to see what we find. So let's look at the top chart here from a system cost standpoint. The fuel costs are about the same. The BES system is actually cheaper. And the reason it's cheaper is it can buy $23 megawatt hour off-peak power. That's cheaper than a gas peaker can produce it for. Then when we add the variable Capex, it's still about the same. The BES system is actually $1 cheaper than the AGC system. So far, so good. Let's go to the third where we add fixed Capex. Now, with fixed Capex, the BES system starts to fall behind. It's $3 more expensive. The reason it falls behind is the fixed OpEx is spread over 16% capacity factor hours. It's not spread over enough hours, and so it starts to become prohibitively expensive. Let's add in return of capital. Again, because we're not producing a lot of megawatt hours, the system cost now soared to $63 versus 47. And then if we add in return on capital, the system cost soared to $104. So in another chart, what does that mean? The system's cheaper 2%, fuel only. It's cheaper 5% when we add variable OpEx. It's 10% more expensive with fixed OpEx. It's 33% more expensive with return of capital, and it's 69% more expensive with return on capital. So what do we have to do in order to reach cost parity? Well, in the fuel system, we're already at parity, it's cheaper. With variable op, we're already at parity, it's cheaper. But with fixed OpEx, we've got to figure out how to reduce that cost by 37%. With return of capital, we've got to reduce cost by 80%. And return on capital, we've got to reduce it 110%, which is conceptually impossible. Let me close this out with three scenarios in order to have BES in a system, not standalone, but in a system because it does deliver those benefits. What has to happen for parity of a battery energy system? Three scenarios. The first is if there's no change in BES Capex, then it reaches parity if natural gas goes from $3 to $14 per million BTU. We've seen gas at $14 per million BTU. Conceptually, it's possible, highly unlikely, but $14 gas would have BES system parity. The second scenario is we started off saying BES capital has dropped significantly, 6x over the last 10 years. What happens if it continues dropping? In this scenario, we've dropped BES Capex another 50%. If BES does drop 50%, then we're at parity if gas is at $6, roughly 2x of what it is today. And then the third scenario is if gas doesn't change, it's still $3. If it's $3, the system goes into parity if we see a Capex decrease of 69%. So Will, let me just summarize your introduction in the three categories that I'd mentioned. One was Australia being distressed. The second, or bucket, would be the BES projects were put in a regulated rate base. And the third category, quite frankly, when I look at the economics of wind, solar, and BES, those projects are out of the money and will not get built.
Mike, that's really interesting, very detailed stuff. I think it really changes mine and hopefully other people's perspectives as well. I think that there are currently, to your point, very niche situations where this makes sense, but it is not a globally viable solution currently. Now, that said, who knows what the future brings in terms of technology declines and price declines, but I don't think that we're there today where most people really believe we are. And to your point, I think a lot of the details behind the bids that you're seeing, the cost numbers that are being put out there, are a little opaque because it's not quite there yet. So if you have a nice headline that says I'm putting this huge system, nobody really asks exactly what it truly costs, and is it an purely economic decision, or is there something else going on, whether it's federal tax credits, whether it's distress situations, whether it's isolated power that has no outlet. Those seem to be the situations where this makes sense, but where we are today, it's not going to be the solution of today or of tomorrow, but it might be of the solution of next year or 5 years.
Absolutely. The continued technology advances. I do think the efficiency is going to jump above 86%, so losses are going to decrease below 14%. I do see a Capex reduction, but it's a long shot. It's got a long ways to go. Going back to the original formula we discussed, virgin electricity costs plus recycled battery combined have to always be less than virgin electricity costs. That is inherently false.
Great. Well, thank you, Mike. It's very insightful. For more details and the full research and analysis piece, please visit us at cEntellect.com. Thank you.